God is high, he respects the lowly and the humble, and the proud are far off from him. What in the world does that have to do with us right now, and how in the world is that supposed to be encouraging? We'll take a look at it as you guys join me this morning on Coffee Corner. Hi, and welcome back to Coffee Corner, Coffee and Christ. If this is your first time here, my name is Drina, and we are so looking forward to this brand new year. This is my first official video of the year. I did a small one, the beginning of the week or last week, and I'm looking forward to just having some more in-depth studies with you guys this year, maybe even some mini-series, and we'll talk about that at the end of this video. But let's go ahead and jump in. I have to show you, I found this recipe online, Pinterest, and it's really light color. I don't know if you guys can really see it there because it's so light, but it is a snickerdoodle latte, and it is so scrumptious. Actually, if you'll pardon me for a second. Okay, if you don't like super sweet coffees, this is not for you, because there is like 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, and brown sugar just tends to make everything super sweet. So if you're not a sweet person, that is definitely not your thing. But on the idea of coffee, if you guys have any thoughts or ideas on how to incorporate green tea into your normal daily routines, I'd love to hear. I'm trying to incorporate green tea more into my diet. I have a few teas that I really like. I like green tea, but it's just not something I drink, even on a weekly basis, and I'd like to try to start drinking it more and developing a taste for it more. So if you guys have any ideas of how to incorporate that, into something you drink normally, not just drinking it hot, I'd love to hear it. Leave it in the comments below, because I'm trying to curb the coffee a little bit. This is only my second cup today, so that's good, because I'm actually, as you guys know, I record these in advance, so yeah, it's later in the day and it's my second cup of coffee. We are still in Psalms, because over Christmas I took a break and was doing a different devotional specifically for that season. So I've been jumping back into Psalms since the beginning of the year, and the psalm I'm on, and the psalm I took that beginning thought and idea from, is Psalm 138 and verse 6. And let me read it word for word for you right now, and you'll see where I'm going with it. Though the Lord be high, yet hath he respect unto the lowly, but the proud he knoweth afar off. And just to give you a heads up, my dishwasher is running in the background, so if you hear noise, that's what it is. But yeah, I've just decided to go with it and record with it on. So, but going back to this verse, it's a very similar verse to, I believe it's in James, where it says, the Lord resisteth the proud and giveth grace unto the humble. I don't know if that's in James or not. Now I need to look. But it's similar in that. But I don't know, I was just reading through it, and obviously there is this contrast of the Lord is high, and he oversees everything. He knows whether or not you are actually you're humble in spirit, or if you're proud in spirit. So there's that aspect of the first beginning of the verse. You can't hide anything from God. You can't hide your attitude or really what your heart is from God. He knows. And with this all-knowing knowledge, he has respect unto the lowly. Even though he is so high and so far removed from us, he still interacts with the lowly really in any type of position. It doesn't specifically say the humble here. So yes, lowly in spirit, lowly in heart, which is humility, but also even those who are cast aside by the world, who are seen as low, and the low classes of people in the world, and those that are rejected in the world. God is there for them. He's reaching out to them. He sees them for who they are, not just their status or their class or their worldly possessions. And then you have on the contrast, the proud he knoweth afar off. And at first read and first glance, it really is just this contrast like that other verse of, he resisteth the proud but giveth grace to the humble. So he's with the lowly, but he is far away from the proud. And there's just some thoughts that I put down. The question is it God that pushes away the proud, or is it the pride itself that separates? God is never pushing people away from himself. It's always our sin. And here, what some would call the chief sin, the sin of pride, pushes us away from God. It is what separates us from God. It is not God that separates us from him. It's our sin that does. And that's where this thought comes in. Even though we're separated and this pride is evil, it's corrupting, and it separates us from God, despite the ugliness of sin, he still sees them afar off. And I think often we focus on the afar off part and not the seeing part. Yes, sin does puts other people, sometimes we like to categorize ourselves always in the good category, the ones that are close to God, just because we know the Lord and love him. But sin can creep into our lives as well. And that does push us far off. But that's not what we have to say, because God sees them. God sees the proud afar off. And as I'm reading this, I think think forward, really, chronologically speaking, to the parable of the prodigal son, where the father is watching and he's looking for his son, and he's longing for the day that his wayward son is going to come home. And I can't but think that that's the way the Lord's looking after these proud, and really after anyone who has a breach in their relationship with him as a believer, or those who have not accepted him yet. There's this longing. He sees them. He wants them to come home, but there's this sin that's blocking him. And I think, personally, it's a good reminder that even when I've done wrong, even when I've sinned, God isn't pushing me away. I can go to God. He's still looking at me. He's still longing after me. And I can go to him and I can ask forgiveness. But outside of ourselves, there's no one in this world that God does not see. And I mean that God does not want them to come. That there's no one that God does not want to come to him. He wants everyone to come to himself. Christ says later that it's the will of the Father that everyone comes unto him, and that none would perish. That's the word I was looking for. It's not the will of the Father that any should perish. And I think sometimes in our brain, I catch myself with this, not so much in a hard statement, but God, they need to clean up their lives, then God will accept them. Or maybe this person could never come to God, they're way too messed up. But that's not the case. God's looking after them. The pride, the crowning sin, the sin that threw Lucifer out of heaven, that sin, God sees them afar off and he's longing after them. Any sin is all the same. And it doesn't matter what the sin is. God's looking after them. God's longing after them, that they would come to him. And I think it's such a beautiful reminder that God sees the lowly, the people that God rejects, and God sees after. He sees them afar off, those who to us are despicable and horrible people, not the people that maybe we just overlook and reject, because they're not up to our standards, but those people that just are so repugnant because of their sin, their attitude, whatever it is. Those are the people that God's looking after and longing after. And it's so hard to capture that in our own lives. It's God's attitude towards people. And I wonder if it's mine. I know it's not mine, not a lot of the times. And it's such a good reminder that no one's beyond the grace of God. I've seen this quote. I'm not sure where it's from. It's not original to me, but it's, on your worst days, remember that you're never beyond the reach of God. And on your best day, you're never beyond the grace of God. And on your best days, you're never beyond the need of God's grace. And I know I just completely clobbered that phrase, but saying that no one is too bad or no one's too good for God. God's grace extends even to the lowliest, to the most rejected, to the most despised people in our human perspective. And even, those heinous sins that God despises and God rejects, but he still sees the sinner, and he's still reaching out, and he's still longing for the sinner. So it was just, I don't know, it was just interesting to me as I looked at it, and just how it struck me differently than, a verse like this might have struck me in the past of, it's just that comparison of lowly and pride. But it even talks about God's mercy and God's grace in that tiny little verse. We have so much to thank God for today, his mercy, his grace that he's given to us, and let's make sure that we're bestowing that and giving that and sharing that, showing that to other people. All right, well, we are so glad that you came back for Coffee Corner. Like I said at the beginning of this video, we are glad to be back as well. Just some one-on-one chat right now. Next week, we'll be starting a mini-series through Haggai. It sort of has to be a mini-series because, there's a lot we can delve into, but it's only a 4-chapter minor prophet, so if you get a chance, go ahead, find it in your Bible. Haggai is not the easiest book to find, even if you have like the little tab things, it can be hard to find because it's just one of those little minor prophets. But I am looking forward to sharing with you what I've learned from Haggai and just all of the application we can get from this Old Testament prophet that most people probably know like maybe 2 verses out of, maybe a chapter out of. Like before I started studying that, it's probably, I had some general idea of the first chapter. So hopefully this will be helpful for you. It'll be enlightening. It'll be encouraging for you. We're looking forward to that. I'll be posting that sometimes next week, probably on Friday. It's probably going to become a Friday thing. So we look forward to having you then come back. If you haven't, go ahead and, like this video. That really helps me. Ring the bell and subscribe if you haven't already, because then you'll be able to see when I actually post videos. Because if you learned anything from last year, you know that sometimes I post videos very irregularly. So ringing the bell always helps you know when I'm posting, and subscribing just helps give me a little boost of encouragement to know that people are watching as well and that they want more content. So until next week, I hope you have a great weekend, beginning of your week, and keep drinking coffee and stay sane. Bye.